when I was trying to get going in show business, let's not shy away from the word. Nobody needed that L. Let's not shy away from it. One of the first things I did that really kind of moved things along was I joined an improv group in Bath and Bristol. It's based in two places from my memory, called More Fool Us. And I met, Ruth Jones joined it as well after a while. I already knew her, but I met somebody who was going to be very, very, very important in my career. And she's sitting at the other side of the table, Julia Davis. Don't forget, you can hear the full-length, longer version wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, Rob.
Hello, Joyce.
Hello, good evening, Joyce. How are you?
It's lovely to see you here. We met in Bristol. Do you remember the first time? Bigger deal to me than it was to her.
Okay, talk me through it and it might come back.
Rob Brydon.
Bobby
We
Big.
did a show called Human Remains.
Yes, I remember
in
all
2000.
those.
Do you remember that?
Yes. I do. I did really like it. I think it was like the perfect thing, don't you think? Like, because we got to do loads of different characters and it was mostly improvised, even though we sort of collated it into stories. So, yeah.
Well, it was improvised. It was written through improvisation because I think if you say it was improvised, that suggests that we turned up on the day in a sort of curb your enthusiasm way with a rough thing, which wasn't the case, was it?
No.
I mean, there were very tight scripts.
Yeah, which I did most of the work on, Joyce.
Well, I know, of course.
By hand, with a pen. Literally before laptops or
but
before I used one.
You are abundant in your writing, aren't you?
No, and also I'm not. That makes me sound like it was totally our work.
Yeah.
It was both of ours.
Yes.
Of course. I mean, you came up with all the jokes. Let's be honest.
Jumped ahead now. I was talking about when we met and you had very dim memories of it.
Okay, so we met in Bristol, but where?
First memory.
It's blurry and it's in the Euston Off Theatre in Bath and it's doing improvised stuff.
Tell people about this improv group.
Well, no. It was, I don't know how many was in the overall troupe.
How many were in the overall troupe, not was?
Beg pardon. Yeah. But let's say 12. Each week it would change. You'd have to present the show, which you loved doing.
Isn't that right? I don't remember that.
As did Toby, etc. Me and Jane used to absolutely hate doing that. We only liked doing the improv, And you'd start the show with, this is a fully improvised show. Would anyone like to see me in what position would you like to see me in? There was something like that, wasn't it? As the opening gambit.
Yeah.
And it was usually some man shouting out with your legs open or something. And then you'd get on the floor and do that. And thus began.
Were you part of it from the very beginning? Because it began almost with a course of learning improv with this guy, Paul Z. Jackson.
Yes.
And we learned things that I still remember to this day.
And still use, I'm sure.
And still, you do in a way.
Yeah.
In dealing with the audience, he had a big thing about if you asked the audience for a suggestion, you always thanked them after they did. Do you remember that?
No.
Isn't it fascinating, this memory thing?
Yeah.
We're both thinking of exactly the same period and the things that stand out. I always remember.
I remember his face very well.
You're very good with faces, though, aren't you? Eh?
Yeah, go on. No.
Yeah. There are women like Julia all over Great Britain. For just £10 a month, Julia and women just like her can be helped to remember saying people's names, repeating the suggestion because of knowing that most of the audience probably haven't heard it.
Yeah.
That's such a solid thing. So we started off doing that. And tell me about, you mentioned Jane. Which Jane is this?
Jane Stannis was Sherman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've done lots with her, and you had a double act.
Yeah, we were in
her.
a double act called Sisters of Percy. And so I think, that we joined it after it had begun, because I remember people like Babs were in it and Stephanie.
I think I was in it from the very beginning.
Oh,
then.
I see.
I think I was. Yeah, but I think so. I think I was there when he was giving these lessons, and then it built up into performance.
Yeah.
And the zenith of which was coming to London and playing in Islington at that famous pub theatre. And do you know why we were playing there?
I do. We were hoping
Yes.
that we were going to get asked to go on Whose Line Is It Anyway?
And I think it was Dan Patterson, the producer, came to our show and left
within minutes.
No, not within minutes, within the interval. Come on, not within. There's no way he sat there. The show started, and within 10 minutes he got up and left.
I felt it was very quick, though.
Yeah, but not within minutes. That would be apocalyptic.
I remember being very upset,
yeah.
but also that Jane and I had been smoking something in the car just before.
Had you?
Which I would never have normally done.
That's probably why he wasn't impressed, because you lost your edge. So that was your fault.
Yeah, I brought the whole thing down.
I had no idea you did that. Just before.
Yeah.
So you're about to do a thing where you need to be sharp, you need to be really on it.
I mean, it wasn't much, but it was just really not something I would normally do, I have to say.
Well, this is a whole reappraisal of... So I was that close to being asked to be on...
Oh, I know.
Whose Line Is It Anyway?
How much would we all have loved to be on that?
We really wanted it, didn't we? We really wanted it.
Yeah.
And that was at a time when it was so exciting that he was coming.
Yeah.
You know, this was our big thing. Didn't happen.
No.
So what happened next?
When was that in our whole story? Like
about 90, would that have been about 95, 96?
So you would still be doing QVC?
Radio and Voices. Well, no, that was about 89 or 90. That was earlier than that.
Do you miss that?
I used to be a presenter on a shopping channel. Julia elevates it by calling it QVC. Which
was
is
it not?
No, it was called the Home Shopping Television Network. There are clips of me on it available on YouTube, much to my annoyance. I want to know who it is who has these clips in the first place and thinks, I know what I'll do. I'll put them on YouTube. Rob will really appreciate that.
I want to see that.
Oh, it's terrible. But
I quite enjoy it. I can imagine you doing it.
No, you do learn, though. I was talking to someone about this the other day, about doing what you might call crappy jobs, but you actually learn quite a bit from them. Do you have an equivalent?
No, but there was lots of working in offices and boring.
Yeah, but within your
selling
chosen
gigantic
thing,
mobile phones.
Well, you're selling mobile phones?
Yeah,
Where was that?
massive ones. With a very dodgy guy I met in a pub who said, I've set up a company, and then they were just so bad. And I remember I had a very, very bad cold when I joined working with him. And I was facing a desk one way, he was the other. And I was like, I was obviously really annoying him and sort of going, and I was too honest on the phone with selling. You'd have been good at it. But, you know, where the people would phone and go, it's not working. And I'd go, oh no, that's awful. We'll try and replace it. And he got really annoyed with me. And I think possibly fired me from that. I also got fired from a cleaning job.
Where were you cleaning?
I was cleaning in Bath, it was an estate agency in a very tall building with lots of floors. And I basically just wasn't doing it properly. I was sort of spraying stuff around.
I can't imagine you being a good cleaner. I don't think you'd be very thorough.
Doesn't mean I'm not clean, as a person.
I think you're relatively unclean. You're messy.
I'm very messy.
You are messy, aren't you?
And you've always enjoyed my eating. You know how you've always found my eating habits weird, and now my boys continually say, "Why do you have to eat in such?"
Julia eats like a sort of Neanderthal who hasn't encountered cutlery. So I have very strong memories of you eating a banana. You would split open, am I right?
Still holds
open
today.
The peel of a banana, and reach in and scoop out banana. Who does that? Nobody.
Me.
You peel it. No,
I also
nobody.
have to leave something at the end of every meal, not for any reason other than I feel there's something wrong with part of it. It's like a really weird thing I do, and I still eat more with my hands than
with your hands, and you would pull bits off food, and I sometimes see my boys do that with bread, and I go, Julia, and I don't want them to end up like you,
No.
and I go, no, stop it.
But also, just to turn it around on you, Stanny, you were the person who had never had salad dressing.
Oh yeah,
when I met you,
yeah, is that right?
You'd never drunk alcohol.
That's right.
I think those are the two main things I remember.
I had an incredibly limited palate until I met Claire. And then I tried seafood. I was in Sydney with Claire in about 2005. And she ate all sorts of things. And we had seafood, and I phoned my parents. I said, I'm by the bridge in Sydney Harbour, and I just had squid or something like that. And my mother said, oh, you'll pay for that. She said, your father had crab in 1973, was sick for a week. But
Did you pay for it?
No, it was lovely.
Did you have oysters?
Yeah.
Straight away?
Yeah. Gave James Corden his first oyster.
Did you?
And I gave Dale Winton his first oyster.
Oh, I bet you did.
He loved it. Oh, I bet he did. Right. So back to, you come to London, and this is, you went off on a tangent. You're immediately working with great people.
Yes.
Arthur Matthews and Graham Linehan, Chris Morris, and the master.
Lord Coogan.
How did all that happen?
Very lucky.
Yeah, but you say lucky, but you stood out. I was talking to, I interviewed Steve again, and you came up, and we talked about how he saw my demo tape, which you gave to him, and how he'd seen your demo tape, which I still have. I still got a VHS. I've got a VHS of that, yeah. It
and mine was much better.
Julia C.L. Davis on it, doesn't it? Yeah. And he said yours, you thought, my God, what is this? He said it was as anxiety-inducing as it was funny, and he'd never seen anything like it.
Yeah. But that was lucky that it got to him, you know.
How did it get to him?
Well, I think I thought, oh yeah, I just sent it from Bath, but I didn't. I did have an agent, and so I'd said, could she pass it on? But I think if you think about the way the world, I mean, it is still very lucky that he watched it.
The likelihood of him watching it.
Yeah, that he would bother to watch it.
So first thing, Arthur Matthews, Graham Linehan was Big Train. Was there a radio? No, the Blue Jam and then Jam.
That was the first job, actually. I can't remember the timings of this, whether it was the Steve Coogan tour with Simon Pegg, or whether it was Blue Jam with Chris Morris.
Which was the radio, and then Jam was the TV. Yeah. But you're working with, I mean, all the people, right, that you'd mention around there. So you say Simon Pegg, Kevin Eldon, Mark Heap, Chris Morris.
Amelia Bullmore.
I was searching for a woman. These are fantastic people. Were you aware of that? Were you thinking, these people are particularly talented?
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, I was obviously unbelievably excited to be getting that kind of work, which frankly is the best work I've ever had. Like, I'm not getting that kind of work now. You know, exciting.
You just worked with DanielDay Lewis in a Paul Thomas Anderson film.
A few years ago. But I mean, like, where it's like that kind of thing that's really exciting, a team of people. Yeah. And, you know, as you say, all
brilliant
super
people,
talented.
Brilliant people. So, but the big thrill for me, so around that time, I hadn't seen you for a bit. And then we were back in contact, and you said to me, I'm going on Steve Coogan's tour. Now, I'd not met him at this stage, and he was a big deal to me because he's so funny, but also because of his path was from voices to character comedy. And I was stuck in voices and desperately wanted to do character comedy. Do you remember that at the end of your first day's rehearsal with him for that tour show, I phoned you up and I asked you the immortal question, what's he like?
Well, my very first memory, though, before that was when I had to meet them in sort of this huge room with Bruno Tonioli, who's now on Strictly.
Not anymore. He's now on Britain's Got Talent.
Okay. And I walked through the door and I remember I was wearing these black sort of quite tight trousers. As I walked through the door to meet Steve Coogan, Pete Bennett, all these people, the button flew off, my fly slightly came open. I did have pants on, thank God.
For a change.
And then I sat next to Bruno. I had a cappuccino. He accidentally knocked my arm. It just spilt everywhere.
Really?
So it was just like a series of really embarrassing things.
Was this an audition or you got the job?
I'd got the job, but it was some big meeting. Yeah.
And this was Steve sort of at his first sort of peak, because Partridge was this big thing. And this was a tour called The Man Who Thinks He's It, which went round the country and then came into the Lyceum. How did you find the touring life?
I ended up loving it to the point where I didn't want to live anywhere. So I do understand
Right,
that.
because you
that
get rid of all
lifestyle.
responsibility.
Yeah.
Everything's
so I
done
loved it.
for you.
Yeah.
You're just
I'm just
traveling all the
constantly
time.
moving.
Yeah.
I found it at first it took me a little while to get used to the whole thing. But yeah, fun, really.
So you do the tour with Steve. You come into the West End.
Yeah.
And that's different to touring, isn't it? Because you're in this one theatre,
Yeah.
so you get to know all the sight lines, the sounds, or it becomes a very different thing. It's like essentially like doing the run of a play.
Yeah.
How did you find that?
What, coming into the West End?
Yeah.
Loved it.
Did you?
No, I don't know. I think it was different because then I think I was looking for somewhere to live. And I do remember the lighting man saying that there was somewhere in Shepherd's Bush that I could move into. And I remember arriving in this dark, weird house and there was a sort of bird flying around in the house. And I think I stayed for about 6 hours and left.
Yeah.
So I was then seeking somewhere to live.
Stayed for 6 hours. What? As if you were thinking you were moving in.
Yeah, I was meant to move in, but I didn't know who these were people that he randomly knew. It was just some really bizarre house, and I don't like birds in a trapped environment.
You've never liked birds in a trapped environment, have you? You've always been very firm on that. Be it a pigeon, be it a macaw.
Exactly.
No, you have though. You have.
Yeah.
I mean, and he was wrong to think you'd like that. He said, "I got a house with a trapped bird. I'll offer it to Julia C.L. Davies." Yeah.
Yeah. So
did you kill the bird?
I did.
You did. What did you do? Did you throttle it?
No, I just put a small bag over its face.
Put a small bag over its face.
And then just put it in a fridge.
Please, look, it's obviously a joke. Don't write, don't text, don't blog. It's a joke. But you did kill the bird, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. You do Nighty Night. You play Jill. Tell me about Nighty Night.
Well,
people love that show.
It was after we'd done Human Remains, and I think you were then probably doing other things.
Light entertainment.
Yeah.
I was embracing the lighter side of life.
And then Henry Normal from Baby Cow, who was a great supporter, he said to me, you should try and write something on your own. And I was like, I just don't think I can.
Oh, of course you can.
But I didn't feel, it was much more fun working with you doing that.
I was more fun than no person at all. That's not like saying, I much preferred working with you than X or Y.
No,
I preferred you to nobody being in the room.
To zero.
Yeah.
No, it was though, wasn't it?
Well, yeah.
So much fun.
Absolutely.
But
it was also at a time when we'd nothing to lose.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing to lose. Yeah. It was great.
Yeah.
I said earlier about desperate to prove myself.
Yeah,
God, I was desperate for myself. And we devoted so much time to it.
Yeah.
And the scripts are dense. So now you're on your own. There's a little gap in the chair where Bobby had been with his little red coat draped over the back of the chair. But he's gone off to Butlins for a summer season. So you're doing Nighty Night.
Yes.
Right.
I did do a lot of improvising of Nighty Night with Jane Stannis. And so, yes, so that was good. And that also, added to the Jill character, which was also, so as you say, it was partly influenced by that character in Human Remains, whose name we can't remember. Yeah. Also from when I'd worked in an office. Beverly?
Tony and Beverly.
I think it was, yeah. Well done.
Well done, me.
I'd worked in the finance department of Bath University.
What the hell did you do there? You in the finance department?
I literally had to check figures in a book, and
oh my God! Did they end up in financial disarray?
There was an incident where I lined up all the checks wrong. Those machines that sort of print are sort of going round like this. Yeah. I sort of realised I'd lined it up wrong almost immediately, but it was too late. And How
do you get the job? Who interviewed you and said, yeah?
Do you know what? I think my mum had worked somewhere around.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, well, where were we?
Just £10 a month will be enough to transform the life of Julia and other women like her. When I talk about you, I always say, well, Julia has her things, right? Like all great creators, you could say Woody Allen has his thing, Wes Anderson has his thing. And I see you in that.
You see me as on a par with those.
No, but I see you as someone who writes. So you've got, messy food,
certainly weird food. Weird names.
Messy food.
Weird, messy food.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unhappy relationships. Yeah. Mismatch. And yet, you see, in Human Remains, do you remember us thinking that we wanted to show relationships that were just quirky and that within them, it seemed the norm to that couple?
Yeah.
But then when you step back, you go, oh, that's a bit peculiar.
Yeah. Well, they were all very fucked up, weren't they?
I was sat down some years ago watching a BAFTA screener. Yeah, I'm a member of BAFTA. Watching a screener of Paul Thomas Bloody Anderson's film, Phantom Thread. Watching Lord DanielDay Lewis being as extraordinary as he always is. Is it Leslie Manville?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We're enjoying it.
Yeah.
We're enjoying it. Without warning, who appears in this DanielDay Lewis? You. My God. And you were fine. What was that like?
That was the night before. I was so scared. I think I was actually physically sick.
Were you serious?
Honestly, so scared because of him.
And there's a script for that?
There was a script, but what happened was we got onto set. I shook hands with Danny.
Yeah.
He was very nice.
It's you and him at a table, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was some dispute over
billing.
Yes. But I got my way in the end. No, there was something to do with, he technically said that where we were all sitting wasn't quite right for some reason.
Dan, let it go.
But PTA said, come on, just pipe down. Dan had brought a friend with him, a lady who was very nice, who was literally a friend, who was also... Anyway, then I think we started doing the scene and then PTA said, do you know what, he whispered to me and sort of said, you can just improvise. If you
Did he say that to you?
And it was like
He said,
heaven.
Julia, you're sat opposite DanielDay Lewis. Have a bit of improv.
Yeah. But to be honest, that was like, thank God.
Yeah.
Because sitting, looking at DanielDay Lewis, trying to say the lines, looking into those eyes, very intense.
Yeah. Did it remind you of when we were working together on
Very
Human
similar.
Remains?
Very, very similar.
Yeah.
That dazzling, charismatic, sort of gravitas was there. It was. You just think of every film you've ever seen him in, and
he's not put a foot wrong, has he, Dan? He's not put a foot wrong.
Even when he went off to be a cobbler.
Do you remember Chris Grimes, who we worked with in the improv we talked about? He went to the same school, the Old Vic school that DanielDay Lewis went to. And Chris used to tell the story of how galling it was. There was a very famous drama teacher there.
Rudy.
Eastern European, who used to wax lyrical about DanielDay Lewis. And Chris used to say, oh, Daniel, if you could have seen Daniel. Oh.
I met Rudy and had the same experience. It's just that I didn't get into Bristol Old Vic. I auditioned for a PGCE course, a one-year course, and I had to do Lady Macbeth whilst with a skipping rope. Oh, one of those kind of things. Yeah. And then Rudolph, he said, oh my God, your voice, it's so squeaky.
No.
And he just didn't like my voice. And then started to go on about Daniel, but saying Danny.
Danny's voice.
So...
And with the skipping rope, Danny
could
rope.
do it. He was so good.
Danny could skip like the Buffalo Girls, Buffalo Girls go round the outside, do-si-do your partner.
Exactly.
He's so good. And he can make shoes.
But no, it was ultimately really, really good experience.
Our time with Julia is your taxi's booked for 4 minutes. I know you don't like to keep them waiting.
And we've barely scratched the surface of my life story
I don't think
career.
I don't think people would like to see us
We've missed a very
scratching.
British scandal.
What did you play in that? Is this recent?
Yeah. You're telling me you clearly didn't watch it.
No, I didn't know you were in it.
Well,
who did you play?
I can't remember the name of the character.
Well, that says it all. I can't remember the name of the...
Who can?
Oh, Danny remembered the characters.
Danny
knew the
always
name.
Remember.
Last of the Mohicans. He knew it was a Mohican. There was no doubt.
Oh, God.
So you were in that, were you?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I can't remember the name, but it was... Yeah, I was.
You were the very impressive Fanny.
Thank you.
Julia played...
For the Americans listening,
Julia
that would
played Fanny
seem
Craddock.
to be a bottom, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
for them?
or front bottom.
Front bottom here.
Front bottom
but
here.
Back bottom there.
That's right, yeah. But we're in the bottom area.
Yes.
No, but you played Fanny Craddock, you and Gatiss.
Yes.
That was,
yeah.
You've done a few things with Mark, haven't you?
Yes. The best thing we ever did was Sex Lives of the Potato Men.
You were in
the
that?
film that is
Forgot about
rated the worst film ever made.
God.
Which you honestly should watch it to sort of...
Is there anything else you're upset I haven't mentioned? Camping. I loved camping.
Did you?
Pemberton. I love Steve Pemberton.
Brilliant.
You put him to great
so
use.
So brilliant.
And the guy who was a
and
bit
Vicky.
like Anthony Hopkins, that guy, he was the odd guy in it.
David Bamber.
He was very good.
He's brilliant.
He's very, 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 very good.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, no, I like that. And Thing in that was really good. The guy...
Jonathan Cake?
Yeah, but not him. The one that's in... the guy that you have the thing with, or he leaves his wife for you or something. Who's that guy? You know, what's it? Rufus.
Oh, yeah, Rufus.
Rufus.
Brilliant. Rufus Jones.
Rufus Jones.
Yes.
He's
brilliant.
Great in that.
Yes, yeah.
He was terrific in that.
Yeah. And that's the English version of Camping, by the way. Because there was
because you had your thing remade in America. Well, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone else, we got to stop there. And I think we were just getting going. I think it was.
I think so.
It was a bit difficult at first because we know each other quite well.
Yes.
I find those interviews are quite hard.
Yes.
With people I know. All right, stop talking. Goodbye.
Bye.